Hello, hello. I haven't made a video in a little while, but this is a special occasion, so I figured I would pull out the phone and record something. Recently, I went to, and this is a totally unscripted video, a lot of rambling. I recently went to PAX back in September, and while there, I came across a booth for a vendor, some of you may already be familiar with, called Byowave. And they seem to be a company that's focused on creating accessibility controllers, or controllers that are designed with accessibility in mind. And in the interesting element of this is that these controllers are modular. They come in pieces that you assemble to construct interesting combinations of button types combinations that might be easier for you to use. The interesting thing as well was I actually got to trial one of these at the vendor booth, and they seemed really interesting. So I went ahead and purchased some. It's called the Proteus, I believe, the Proteus controller, and I ordered one then and there, and it just arrived today. I literally got the package on my doorstep 10 minutes ago, 20 minutes ago. So I wanted to unbox it, firstly because this is such an interesting controller, and I wanted to share with others and raise awareness, I suppose, of the product. But number two, I wanted to, with a product like this, and with not a lot of, eyes on the company, it's difficult to know, what you're going to get, whether you're going to get a Kickstarter scam or something like that. I trust, the Byowave company to some extent. I talked with folks there, and they seem honest and genuine people. But it's time to see what they actually delivered. So I did open the box just to get that out of the way. So it was shipped like this from Hong Kong directly, DHL. So I'm not sure if Byowave has US offices, but this seemed to come directly from the factory. Some packing foam. A little messy. That's just bubble wrap. Thanks. It looks like to be a handwritten note. Let y'all read that if you'd like. QR code with some support. I didn't realize it comes with a Game Pass Ultimate 1 month. I'll let whoever grabs that can have it, because I already have Game Pass Ultimate and I really don't need another month for free. Manual, and so you can see kind of how the product looks. It's this kind of cuboid shape, and you can kind of see the goal here with these combinations of controller configurations. I'm not going to go through that whole thing, but it is nice that it's a color documentation. So, again, not exactly the most fancy packaging, but no issue there. These look to be some dongles. Not sure why it comes with two. I guess because you don't necessarily. I guess you can technically use these controllers in multiple combinations, right? I guess I'll have to look at that. I haven't done a lot of research, so this is just off the cuff. A USB A to USB-C cable. That's actually quite a long guy. Don't know if that's data and power. I imagine so, if it can be used wired. This seems to be so these seem to be more of the constructible elements. So grips with their kind of gearing connection system. I'll set those to the side. I'll start to assemble some of these actual pieces. I think these are called cores. So there is a core there. And again, it is an interesting guy. Kind of hefty. It's got a nice weight to it. This looks to be a extender, I believe. These allow you to get some longer, I guess, if you need to offset something by a, what is that? Or maybe this is a central piece. It does have a USB-C, so it might be necessary for power in. I'll have to take a look. It really is like a Connects or Lego or something like that. It's another one of these cores, hubs, centerpieces. There's probably a name for them in the manual. And now these are the actual inputs. So we have two nub style joysticks. These are kind of similar, I would say, to the Vita. I feel like they're a little shorter than the Switch, but they are clicky. They do have R3, L3, or I guess threes. They don't have to be on the right or left, I suppose. These seem to be triggers and bumpers, shoulders in a single. So these are quite clicky, but the shoulders are analog. A little creaky. No click on the full depression, which I prefer. We'll have to see if these are analog. They feel analog, but I've been fooled before. Not exactly the best feeling triggers in the world. Shoulders are very clicky, but I don't mind. I'm a fan of clicky controllers. For context, I like the Scuff Nomad and other Scuff controllers, just as a caveat to my preferences. A D-pad. Ooh, now those are very clicky and actually have quite a force that they need to press. Again, I'm a fan, but you can hear, for those of you who don't like clicky D-pads, that is a very clicky D-pad. Ooh. Interesting. Wow. Okay. You have your face. Now this is X input or Xbox style. This is an Xbox licensed product, I believe. So Microsoft licensed, Xbox licensed product. So you do have the Xbox button there, your share and start, and your select or option. ABXY are not as clicky. In fact, they're kind of membrane-like. Interesting. Interesting that it's not consistent. I would have expected them to be assembled the same way. And I think that might just be, yeah, that's just additional packing material and cardboard. Okay, so we have this box. Well, get rid of this box. Here is our loot. So we have two of these USB-A dongles, a center. Let's assemble an Xbox controller here out of our parts. And there you go. Not too shabby. Now this controller was, I'll put the price on the screen. I don't honestly remember. It was a few $100 maybe. And of course the cable there. It was a few $100, I think. But we'll have to take a look at what all you can do for that price. Off camera, I'm going to assemble a combination here and see if I can just reproduce what they have on the art here. Something like that. All right, we're zoomed in a little bit more. I wanted to go over this manual because it lists pieces, but it doesn't seem to be a full glossary because you see that it duplicates some of these items. These are both the same. So I believe either this manual, it comes in all of the Proteus controller boxes. And it, it isn't actually accurate to what you receive, or I am missing a lot of stuff from this package. So just to go through this, these two don't seem to be included. They may not even be made anymore. I haven't done any due diligence looking this up, but these seem to have thumbsticks built in. These are full-sized thumbsticks. Again, this might have been just a show exclusive smaller bundle that was a little more affordable. Very likely, very possible. But just for context, these were not included. These three were. These were as well. I have 2 dongles. I'm almost wondering if that was on accident, and that is not on purpose. These were included as well. These were not included. These seem to be single buttons. Think like a Sanwa style arcade stick button. This was included. These, actually 2 of these, again, not specified in this. That's why I'm wondering if this was a specific combination that doesn't actually match up to this manual. This was not included either. These are just to cover up holes, so you're not touching the contacts. I'm very surprised one wasn't included, and that almost makes me think that this was on accident, because although you don't get any of those in the assembly I've constructed, it seems very odd to not include such an important piece. Only one edge spacer, that's what these the smaller pieces, was included. This was not, nor was the second one. So, and then, actually, now that I think about it, neither of these were included, any of these 3. This is the charging spacer, which is seen there, as well as the cables and the handle. So, Byowave, if you see this, let me know if I just bought a special version that only has this smaller amount of stuff, or reach out if I'm missing something, because I would like to receive all this stuff if possible. So this is a little bit of how to assemble one of these guys, a little bit of the instructions. These analog sticks. The full-sized ones, I believe, are removable. I don't think the mini are. I haven't tested that. Oh, well, there you go. Let's try to put that guy back on. All right. You do have to orient these thumbsticks correctly, and they are actually logically tied to their side, so in software. I have not looked if there is a Byowave software kit. Maybe I'll do a review or a deep dive into that stuff. So I'm not sure if you're able to specifically rebind this, or if that's even available right now. Obviously, X input does not support more than 2 joysticks or analog sticks, so if Byowave did have a software catalog or toolkit to map more than 2 analog sticks, they'd have to figure something out different from X input. These covers are obviously to personalize and show off the branding and cover up some of those holes that are obviously going to cause weirdness if you touch them. And just some assembly instructions. So being able to connect multiple cubes together, and which becomes the dominant in the charging and power and stuff like that. So a little bit of a weird thing to not have enough to make a fully structured controller, but here we go. Honestly, it's not bad. It's interesting in the hand. It's actually kind of ergonomic, surprisingly. This guy's weird, and I think that you need this somewhere. I think perhaps maybe what I should do, and you can see here there are locks. Here's probably the way you're supposed to do it. So you lock. That's not going anywhere. Same here. Yeah, that's probably a little more ergonomic, but then you have this guy, which is, it's fine. It's not as wobbly as you would think it is. This side is a little bit of flex, as you might be able to see. Not enough that I would say it's bad, but it is noticeable. But these locking power cores do stay pretty rigid. All of these blue connectors here, so for the buttons, the thumbsticks, just twist lock and have some magnets, so they are very lightly in there. These would not stand up to, you know, throwing this controller around. I would also say, for obvious reasons, this is not going to be a waterproof or even water-resistant controller. But holding it is not bad. Those thumbsticks are, as I mentioned before, a little weak in terms of the feedback and the just sponginess. But the face buttons are perfectly fine. And I have to put the Xbox buttons here on the bottom, which is okay. And of course, thumbsticks on the top, because like I said, I only have 2 power cubes. One of the interesting things is, though, if I didn't like this combination, I could remove this and do that. And now I can do this if I wanted to. So obviously, the intention for this product is for someone who, for whatever reason, let's say, for example, you don't have your right hand, or maybe you only have a few fingers on a certain hand. This allows you to, you know, create a controller that's relatively more accessible or more ergonomic for different, you know, situations. I still think there's a lot of good here. I think there's a lot of interesting tech. I haven't powered this on. I haven't actually tried this. That will be later. This was just a little unboxing before I opened it up and ruined the experience by myself, since there isn't a lot out there about this product. But for the average person, I think there's an interesting value add, and that is if, for example, you're into emulating different video game systems. Let's say Game Boy, right? Game Boy has no thumbsticks, no triggers, and so what you can do is, without having to purchase a new controller, or without having to, and in my opinion this is a frustration, knowing which buttons don't do anything, you can just kind of create a, if I can, oh, that is an annoying thing that happens. If you orient this incorrectly, you can be stuck in a situation where the male port is in the way of somewhere that you need to put a button. So it does take a little bit of finagling. Oh, and I just powered it on. It is RGB. I don't know if that was necessary. I feel like it's one of those things that is cool, but boy, oh boy, is that probably adding a little bit of cost to an already fairly expensive product. But maybe, ooh, that is interesting. It makes a very noticeable electronic whine. Not sure if that's on, you know, their radar, but it is noticeable. But you could, and you can see I'm already orienting these incorrectly. There you go, you have a retro controller, right? So for games that have no thumbsticks, no triggers, you would need a lot of extra one of these pads to cover up these ports. But it does technically mean you have a single controller that you can orient to be comfortable without giving you extra buttons that you don't necessarily need. Certainly, if you had a combination of 4 of these cubes and a D-pad with 2 single buttons, you could theoretically create a Game Boy and NES with they'd only have the 2 buttons and not even have. I haven't looked it up. Maybe Byowave has a combo that's just A/B, and that would be, I think, a value add for people like me. So maybe here shortly I'll do a video just showing this thing actually working. But until then, that has been the Byowave Proteus, and perhaps you find this to be an interesting product and want to support their cause in bringing accessibility to the controller space in a way that is, I think, a little bit beyond what Microsoft and other companies have done with creating, pads and 8-bit DOS, removing analog sticks and thumbsticks and putting them on the face of controllers. This is a much more interactive, if fiddly, and perhaps if a little strange in terms of the quality of some of these pieces, attempt to solve that problem. So thanks for watching, and look forward to seeing a playthrough of something using this and to see if this works out of the box on a Windows 11 PC.